Rice versus wheat versus flour, the shocking soil microbe test every gardener must see. If you've ever dug your hands into rich, dark, earthy-smelling soil, you can almost feel the life inside it. That scent, that softness, that alive texture, it all comes from microbial activity. And, as gardeners, we talk about microbes all the time, but, honestly, many people don't realize how quickly you can wake them up using something as ordinary as a pantry staple. Today on SoilPower, we're diving into one of the simplest and most eye-opening soil experiments I've ever run, testing whether rice, wheat, or flour wakes up soil microbes the fastest. The winners and the reasoning behind them genuinely surprised me, and I think they're going to change the way you treat tired soil forever. Let's break open this experiment together and discover not just the results, but what they mean for your garden, your compost, and the long-term health of your soil. Why feeding soil microbes matters more than most gardeners realize. Plants don't grow in soil, they grow in ecosystems, and microbes are the engine powering that ecosystem. When they're active, everything in your garden gets easier, nutrients become more available, soil structure improves, roots spread deeper, water retention stabilizes, even pest resistance increases. Microbes are like livestock. If you want them to work for you, you have to feed them. Most of us feed them indirectly with compost, mulch, and plant roots. But sometimes, soil needs a jump start, especially if you're dealing with tired soil that's been neglected, beds recovering from drought, containers that have lost biological life, new garden beds that feel dead, or heavy clay that needs biological loosening. That's where adding simple carbohydrates can make a dramatic difference. Carbs are the fastest way to energize microbes because they're a direct source of food. But which one works best? Rice, wheat, flour. It's easy to assume they're all roughly the same, but honestly, the science and the soil disagree. How I set up the experiment for SoilPower. To make sure the test was fair and repeatable, I used identical containers, identical garden soil, and the same amount of moisture, temperature, and light. The only difference was the ingredient added to each container. I prepared each treatment the same way. I mixed 2 tablespoons of the ingredient into 1 cup of non-chlorinated water. Then I poured that slurry over 2 cups of soil, mixed it gently into the top layer, and kept each container moist, but never soggy, for 7 days. I kept the test simple so every gardener watching SoilPower could repeat it at home without fancy tools or expensive gadgets. The results started showing long before the week was over. The first signs of change. What happened in the first few days? Within the first 48 hours, I could already see and smell differences between the 3 treatments. The rice-treated soil softened slightly. It began taking on a faint earthy smell. Better, but nothing dramatic. It was like the microbes were waking up slowly, stretching after a long nap and taking their time getting moving. The wheat treatment showed more activity. The soil color deepened faster, and the smell grew richer. Wheat has more complex starch than rice, and that gave the microbes a steadier, more sustained source of food. But again, the change was moderate. Then, there was the flour. The flour-treated soil changed almost immediately. By day 3 it had darkened noticeably, the smell had intensified into that deep, chestnut forest aroma gardeners dream about, and the texture began shifting into a soft, crumbly, alive structure. It was clear sticks. Flour wasn't just feeding microbes, it was jump-starting them. But the question is why? Why would flour leave rice and wheat in the dust? Let's break this down. Why does flour outperform rice and wheat by such a wide margin? Well, when you think about how microbes eat, the results start to make perfect sense. Microbes don't have teeth, they don't chew, they digest nutrients by coming into contact with them, and the more surface area available, the easier it is for microbes to access food. Rice grains are large and protected by tough outer layers. Before microbes can feast on the internal starches, they have to break down that protective layer, and that takes time. Wheat grains are smaller and softer, but they still require microbial effort to break down. They offer food, but not instantly. Flour is different, it's already pulverized. Every particle is exposed. Every particle is tiny. Every particle is instantly digestible. Flour is essentially pre-chewed food for microbes. That means microbes can multiply faster, and when they multiply faster, their activity really explodes. More microbial activity means better nutrient cycling, more soil structure building, and more biological wake-up across the entire system. Rice and wheat will work, sure, but flour works faster, harder, and with more immediate impact. For gardeners who need quick results, like reviving compacted soil before planting or energizing a weak bed, flour is the clear powerhouse. When should you use flour in the garden? This is where things get interesting, because while flour is incredibly effective, you definitely don't want to overuse it, and you don't want to apply it in every situation either. Flour is best used when your soil needs a fast biological kickstart, like waking up soil at the start of the season, recovering soil after flooding or drought, stimulating microbial activity before sowing seeds, preparing stubborn compacted beds for planting, boosting biological life in container soil, or energizing soil used for seedlings or transplants. If your soil looks tired, smells flat, or feels dense and lifeless, flour may be exactly what it needs. But remember, flour is food, not fertilizer. If you dump too much into soil, you could smother microbes, create anaerobic zones, or even temporarily attract sour smells. Moderation protects the system while still delivering incredible results. How to use flour safely and effectively in your garden. Let me walk you through exactly how I use flour in my SoilPower beds. I mix 2 tablespoons of plain flour in 1 cup of water. I stir it until it becomes a smooth, milky liquid, then pour it evenly over the soil. I use a fork, rake, or my fingers to gently work it into the first inch of soil. Then I keep that soil lightly moist for several days. The key is light moisture, not mud. Microbes need oxygen. If you waterlog the soil, they slow down or suffocate. If you keep it evenly moist, they multiply like crazy. Within a week, you can feel the difference. The soil becomes softer, darker, and more crumbly. Plants growing nearby often perk up because the microbial activity improves nutrient availability almost immediately. If your soil is severely depleted, you can repeat this treatment every 2 weeks until you see visible improvement. But always keep doses moderate. The goal is stimulation, not overload. When used correctly, flour becomes one of the most practical, accessible tools for waking up soil biology. How does this fit into long-term soil building? Even though flour gives you fast results, it shouldn't replace compost, mulch, or organic matter. Think of flour as the spark, not the firewood. Once microbes wake up, you want to keep them working with shredded mulch, leaf litter, compost, biochar, and root exudates from living plants. Flour gets the microbes moving, but long-term soil building depends on giving them deeper, slower-burning foods to break down throughout the season. I often pair a flour jump start with a layer of mulch a few days later. The flour wakes the microbes up. The mulch keeps them fed for months. It's a perfect partnership. The big takeaway from this SoilPower experiment: rice helps, wheat helps even more. But flour is the instant-on switch for soil biology. It works because microbes don't waste time breaking through grain layers. They go straight to feeding and multiplying. This fast, efficient energy source triggers a chain reaction in the soil that improves structure, increases nutrient cycling, and supports stronger plant growth. For gardeners who want natural, fast results without relying on chemicals, this trick is truly a game changer. The beauty is in the simplicity. Flour is cheap, it's accessible, it's in almost every kitchen, and when used with care, it can transform lifeless soil into something that smells, feels, and behaves like living earth. This experiment reminds us of something powerful. Sometimes the most effective solutions aren't found in garden centers. They're found right in our pantry. If you found this guide helpful, make sure you subscribe to SoilPower, share this article with another gardener who needs a soil revival trick, and let's keep building a community of growers who understand and harness the real power beneath our feet. Together, we grow smarter. Together, we grow stronger. Together, we grow with SoilPower.